Okay. Are you there?
Yes,
Oh!
I am.
You keep changing places on me.
I know. Isn't that something?
One minute you're over here, the next minute you're over there, the next minute you're over at the other place.
Yes, indeed. Just as long as I'm here, though.
Okay.
All right.
Well, here we are. As promised, we're at the beginning of the first reading of the first chapter of the book called Conspiracy. And
Conspiracy.
for those who may have read the book, you might find it quite relevant to what is going on today or what went on in Washington, D.C. in January 26th. On January 6th.
There you go.
I'm going to make a mistake, not 26th. 6th.
Mm-hmm.
Conspiracies take many shapes and many forms, and we shall see what we shall see.
This is true.
But in this particular case, the conspiracy that I've written about has to do with the possible collusion of the government of South Africa under the apartheid regime, during the course of the apartheid regime, with America at that time, under our friend Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
Since you worked at the Department of Justice during the Reagan regime, you'll know a lot about what I'm talking about. Sounding side.
Moving right along. I'm all three monkeys.
Okay, so here we go. This is chapter 1.
Okay.
Last night I read the prologue,
Mm-hmm.
which was to set us up. He alternately slept and gazed out of the window. There was so little to do on a plane. One could stroll the aisles, strike up nebulous conversation with fellow passengers, fix the earphones in place, watch the movie. Henrik Malan did not care for any of those pastimes. He preferred sleeping and gazing out at the clouds. These two activities gave him the opportunity to rest and focus on the problems he would be forced to deal with when he finally reached his designation. Can I get you something, sir? No, thank you. I'm quite comfortable. He stared into the stewardess's eyes, a dark brown-skinned black woman with blue contact lens.
Mm-hmm.
It was obvious that she liked him. She had shown every sign of being attracted to him after the flight was less than 2 hours old. A black woman with blue eyes, as blue as his own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
He decided not to try to figure out why she was wearing blue contact lens. He had learned over the course of many trips to the United States not to judge the behavior of the African Americans by his own standards. They were an unpredictable bunch.
Mm-hmm.
The American blacks, a perfect illustration in his mind of what happened when inferior people were granted a piece of a superior process.
Mm.
But if you need anything, just buzz, okay? And she winked. Yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
He smiled at her back as she strutted toward the cockpit. Women were a species apart, he felt.
Mm.
Scraped the skin off of them, and no matter whether they were black, brown, white, or any other shade, they still had the markings of a different species. Why was she attracted to him? Was it because he was handsome? He never thought of himself in modern-day idle terms. His own reasoning told him that he was a youthful-looking 50-year-old man, blonde hair streaked with gray, clean-shaven, what some people call a distinguished-looking chap. Lean and fit from regular exercise, and no overindulgence in alcohol and the wrong foods.
Mm-hmm.
He absently figured the crescent-shaped scar at the right corner of his mouth. I wonder what she would feel for me if she knew I was a South African, an Afrikaner, a Boer, a colonel in the South African Secret Police. He smiled again, a wistful smile. Who knows? Being a woman, she might find me even more attractive. I would have an evil quality that seems to be attractive to some women. He flashed back to the white American college woman he had met 3 years before on a mission to New York. "Are you really from South Africa?" she'd asked, puzzled by his slight accent. "Yes, I am South African." He was feeling congenial and felt no need to avoid the inevitable debate he knew they would have to have. And they had it. They continued the debate late into the night at his hotel. After a good French dinner, red wine and cognac, he felt better with a false name, distant. "Are you actually saying, bottom line, that black people are not qualified to govern themselves?" No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they're not qualified to govern us. He had watched her pretending to be asleep the following morning as she scribbled a heartfelt note and tiptoed out of his life. "Dear John," he nodded off, remembering the contents of the note. "Dear John, I had to leave before you woke up. I just couldn't bear the thought of being with you any longer. Somehow you just don't really seem to be what you seem to be. I hate racism and racists, especially intelligent racists. I had a lovely time. Sincerely yours, Mary Beth Sawyer." How many Mary Beth Sawyers had he been forced to deal with in the United States? He mentally counted 3. No. 5. Strangely, he had found several other women who took a position to the right of him. "I think what you guys are doing is right on. That's one of the problems we've had here because we didn't try to keep our niggers in their place." Racists. He hated them. He felt that there was something inherently warped about feeling that one race was superior to another. He had tried to explain his position to an American businessman on his previous trip to California. "You must understand, my friend, we're not trying to keep the African in bondage. We're trying to maintain a civilization that he would destroy if given a chance." "Say whatever you want to say, pal. All I can say to you is this. Keep those monkeys under your thumb by any means necessary, or else you're going to have the kind of problem we have here." Once again, a wistful smile developed. The Americans are so unsophisticated about racial matters. It seemed to be quite simplistic to them. Either you kept the Africans under your thumb, or you released them. He made a subconscious groan and peered down into the sulfite flake clouds of the Los Angeles basin. "Please adjust your seatbelts. We'll be landing at Los Angeles International Airport shortly. Thank you for flying." He stared at the city welling up on his right, rows of pillboxes, kidney-shaped swimming pools, monotony. She strutted through the aisle one last time, making certain that everyone had her seatbelt in place, leaned over to place a slip of paper with her name and telephone number on it in his lap. Once again, he was in Los Angeles, one of the cities in the world he really enjoyed, an insane place, laced with freeways and shopping malls. He could never put his finger on what he liked about the place. There were several things. The spread out flavor appealed to him, the sense of being anonymous. It was as though you were in a kind of fairyland. And the fact that they hadn't, he didn't feel repressed to the wall by Africans. "Call me. She whispered as he left the plane and winked again, her blue contact lens giving her a weird look. He smiled and nodded yes, and immediately thought, called you what? He had 5 days to do his work, no time to call anyone, indulge in sex fantasy games. Van Damme was there, almost a caricature of a subservient chauffeur. Malan made a memo note to request that the consulate get rid of Van Damme. He always greeted his arrival as though he were a mafia chief or some kind of royal figure. It focused too much attention on him. Good afternoon, sir. I trust you had a good flight. Good enough. He handed him the ticket for his bags and in the process rolled the stewardess's number into a small ball and flicked it away from him. He settled into the passenger seat, feeling slightly rusty from the hours of sitting down, but focused. Van Damme, I want you to drive east to Western Avenue. Make a left turn going north on Western, then turn left going west on Wilshire Boulevard. When you get there, yes sir. He felt in tune with the city when he was driven through it, absorbed the sense of its rhythm. Los Angeles was always changing in small ways. A new gas station here, a one-story building torn down on this corner, a two-story building, when replacing it, a small shopping mall overwhelmed by a larger shopping mall, affluence everywhere, even in the black areas. He stared at the black faces as they drove north on Western Avenue. It could be a section of Soweto, he thought, as he paused for the light at Manchester and Western. Ever seen so many filthy Kaffirs in your life, sir? They are not filthy Kaffirs, Van Damme. They are underprivileged African-American citizens. Yes, sir. He hated that. The automatic assumption prevalent amongst a certain level of South Africans and a number of others, that being a South African white automatically equated to being a racist. He freshened the mental notation to have Van Damme fired. Western Avenue seemed to reveal one of the classical circumstances of America, the familiar stranger neighborhood. Now black, now Latino, now Korean. He took in the shop fronts, the exotic block lettering. Koreans. There seemed to be 1,000 more than he remembered seeing during his last visit. Wilshire Boulevard, sir. He sighed and settled back. Nothing ethnic about the core of Wilshire. It was a street that was created for money. It could have been one of the main avenues in Johannesburg. I was instructed to remind you, sir, that your meeting with Dr. Allen is for 10 a.m. Thank you, Van Damme. I have the schedule. The Beverly Wilshire, the top-hatted black doorman in the black-green monkey suit. Evening. He felt bored to the bone after half an hour in his suite. Same old dreary stuff on the television, same old uninteresting hotel room. He decided to rent a car. He knew where to go and what to do on a Monday night in Los Angeles. This is 5:15. I'd like to have a car for the evening. Immediately, sir. Thank you. 15 minutes later, he was in a rent-a-car heading toward the Crenshaw Strip. Wonder if I'll run into this blue-eyed woman in the Pied Piper. Hardly likely. She'd be more likely to be found in the beachfront joints. He never felt hesitant to tour the jazz joints in Los Angeles, the black good time spots. Whenever his presence was noted, there seemed to be an immediate assumption, after his English accent was noted, that he was an adventurous type who strayed from the beaten path along with a few others. He made an impulsive left turn on Martin Luther King Drive to Marla's Memory Lane Supper Club. The odors, the perfumes greeted his entrance. He always liked that. No matter where he went, he knew he would be pleasantly assaulted by the black scent. By the black scent.
Mm-hmm.
Blacks all over the world, he reflected, seemed to love incense, perfumes, pleasant smells.
Mm-hmm.
He occupied a seat at the bar and looked the situation over. It was a bit early, 9 p.m., too early for the kind of feeling he knew would develop later. What do you have? Let's make that gin and tonic. The men to the left and right of him seemed to relax. He was obviously a foreigner, someone they didn't share mutually bad feelings with. He felt the tension disappear. Wonder what they would feel if they knew I was Colonel Henrik Malan of the South African Secret Police. He played with that thought for a moment, sipping his drink. There was a strong possibility they would ignore any announcement that he was a South African, a beast from the terrorist state. Or maybe they would follow him outside and beat him to death. He looked around at the audience. A few white couples, one table populated by a mixed bunch. Himself, the only single white man in the place. They must think I'm a John, out looking for dark meat. Once again, he reflected on the dilemma that the African American presented. It seemed to be almost impossible to tell anything about their character. They could give you the appearance of being calm, easygoing, at peace, and then riot. He didn't feel ill at ease, but at the same time, he didn't feel that he knew them. Bartender, I'll have another one of these. He felt the man's peripheral glance. You from England? He asked. Why not be from England? Yes, how did you guess? Well, I could tell from your accent, but aside from that, I could tell from the cut of your clothes. The English put together some bad pieces. Have you been to England? About 2 years ago, me and my lady, we decided to trip out to Europe, and we wanted to go somewhere, where they spoke English. How would you like it? We had a ball. They were interrupted by the star of the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, the lady you've all been waiting to see and hear, without further ado, we proudly present the one and only Zena McNeil. Let's put our hands together and give her a big round of applause. All right. Malan was struck by the beauty of the woman who glided in the spotlight. In South Africa, she would have been classified a colored, as would half of the black people in the club, including the man who had opened conversation with him. Here in America, in Marla's Memory Lane, she was simply an African-American singer, and an excellent one. Once again, he was stunned by the immediacy of the feelings that erupted during the set. He had witnessed the same emotions in clubs in Soweto, where his appearance had produced a much more subdued effect. The club was bubbling after the singer's appearance. Lady's too much, ain't she? Too much. It was not pidgin, it really was another language. Yes, I guess one could say that. Too much. It was time to go. The animation produced by the singer and the effect of 3 gin and tonics warned them that it was time to go. Time to get ready for tomorrow. Check, bartender. You leaving, man? It ain't really started happening yet. Gotta go. Busy day, lot to do. You know how it is when you have a few days, a lot to do. Hey, I can tell you where you coming from. He stared at the man's outstretched hand for a moment. Blacks were so innocent, so quick to grant their approval. He shook the man's hand. Give my regards to the Queen. Name's Jessie. By all means, the minute I see her. Jessie. What's your name? Paul Marley. he answered without thinking about it. You and the kid to bar, Molly? The man asked with a broad smile. No telling, Jesse. The Marley tree had a lot of branches.
Messing with folks. Okay.
The man smiled and waved at him full of goodwill as he made his way away and out of the bar. He drove super cautiously back to his hotel. They'd make a big deal of any South African being cited for anything on the streets of South Central LA after dark. South Central Los Angeles. He dismissed the familiar, sinister sound of it as he looked through his messages. Dear Colonel Malan, welcome to Los Angeles. Stupid fair vote. He had no sense of secrecy. Anything that happened was worth a telegram, purely for the sake of form. Did it ever occur to him that he might not want certain people to know he was there? The rest of the message was like junk mail. If anyone was listening, they'd have to believe that a member of the South African secret police was in town. He shook his head in disbelief. It was incredible about the American operatives. After a year, they became so Americanized, they needed to be replaced. He gazed out at the full moon before nodding off. Jonas Fairvolt offered his usual nervous greeting. Welcome to Los Angeles, Colonel Malan. I received your telegram, Fairvolt, he said dryly, and seated himself behind the bureaucrat's desk. Yes, of course. They stared at each other for an awkward moment, Fairvolt wringing and washing his hands as usual. It was always difficult to have members of the South African secret police visit the consulate. They seemed so cold and rigid. Dr. Allen will be arriving shortly. In the meanwhile, I have several suggestions to make. Number one, I would prefer that Van Damme not be employed by us any longer. You may give him 2 weeks' servant's pay. Van Damme? He's one of our best. Malan stabbed the nervous bureaucrat with a cold glance. Yes, of course. We'll see to it immediately. He made a mental note to have Fairvolt replaced. America seemed to cause a terminal weakness of some sort. He noticed after a couple of years, some people had to be replaced because they become soft or weakened in some way. The secretary's voice thrilled from the intercom. Dr. Allen is here, sir. Thank you. Allow me 5 minutes and then send it in. Yes, sir. Fairvolt, you have an option. You can be a part of this meeting or not. If it's just the same with you, Colonel Malan. I am simply Henrik Malan here. How many times I have to remind you? Oh, sorry, sir. If it's just the same with you, I have other matters to attend to. Suit yourself. Send Dr. Allen in, please. Yes, there was definitely a need to send men like Jonas Fairvolt back home periodically to stiffen their backbones. Good morning, Dr. Allen. Welcome to a bit of South Africa and America. Good morning, Mr. Malan. Please be seated. Henrik Malan made a quick reading of Dr. Marcus Allen. Again, definitely an academic, but there was nothing of the absent-minded professor about his manner. It was quite easy to see behind the black horn rims a sharp mixture of cynicism and intelligence. Dr. Allen was one of the principal architects of his country's television image. He was the one who had warned them to take the heroic images of young Africans off of television. Don't you see what's happening? Even apathetic types are beginning to relate to their struggle. You must remove these images from the tube if your government wants to accomplish its aims without outside meddling. He was a valuable consultant. His fee was large, but he was worth it. Well, now, what do you have for us this time, Dr. Allen? He watched Dr. Allen snap his briefcase open, and dip inside for a sheaf of papers and a manila envelope. Per your instructions, or should I say, as a result of our last meeting, a quick, crafty smile, I've developed 4 programs designed for the American market. Each of them has a well-structured subliminal message. I think you'll appreciate the subtle messages contained in each of them. Both the President and I have been quite satisfied with your work. Thank you. In addition to the programs, I've designed one special, specifically aimed at the Black American audience. Malan made a mental note of a few key words. He said, designed, not created, developed, structured. Why was Allen on their side working for them? The money was obviously an incentive. They had compiled a complete dossier on him, a nagging wife, 2 children, the girl with a drug problem, an Asian mistress, flying trips to Las Vegas. But there was something else. He never felt completely at ease with Allen's lack of scruples. He seemed to be willing to do anything for a price. And there was a danger in that. If he were willing to create / design programs for them, was he just as willing to do the same for others? The African American special focused on an African hero, someone they can relate to and yet be distant enough from him, not to cause any problems. What's the payoff for my government? Or as I see it, the payoff will be political initially, but I have no doubt that making an effort to influence Black Americans will inevitably result in financial gains. Blacks will spend their money freely with only the slightest encouragement. Even with us, I'm sure if you well-designed, mislabeled corporation could correct that problem. Malan folded his hands on the desktop and glanced at the stand-up calendar in the right corner. It's sunny today in South Africa. How much will all of this cost? Dr. Allen pushed his glasses up onto the bridge of his aquiline nose and studied the sheet. I think the total package would be assembled for about 10 mil or less. That doesn't seem to be an unreasonable price to pay for goodwill. Dr. Allen beamed. He could already see the smile on Sumiko's face. She loved him more when he was successful. However, I don't think it's quite what we want at this point in time. A vicious little smile played at the corners of his mouth, watching Allen's glasses slide down, the gleam dying in his eyes. I have a feeling that things have gone too far for us to make a hit with TV specials, no matter how clever they're designed and structured. We need something else, something heavier that will have a greater impact. What do you have in mind? We thought you'd be able to come up with something. I would be willing to stake my reputation on the possibility of it. Let me speak frankly, Dr. Allen. You've made several worthwhile contributions to my country's welfare. I just don't think that this is one of them. I have a gut feeling that making an effort to expose an African hero on American TV might be counterproductive for us. We need to have a negative exposure of blacks whenever possible, not positive, negative. Do I make myself clear? Dr. Allen nodded solemnly, avoiding the direct gleam of the laser beam blue eyes behind the desk. They didn't call him Iceberg for fun. I don't want you to misunderstand me, Dr. Allen. The use of television is always a tricky business. It may very well be that your program would have the desired effect, but not for long. That's one of the great problems in that area, whether pro or con, the effect wears off too soon. We want a carefully designed program that will have a lasting negative effect. I understand, Mr. Malan. It seems that I'll have to return to the drawing board. Dr. Allen returned the sheaf of papers and the manila envelope to his briefcase. They stood and shook hands. Mr. Fairbolt will, of course, negotiate a suitable fee for your time and an option on the ideas you design. Thank you. We'll be in touch. He sprawled in his seat and placed his heels on the desk. This was not the time for pictures that might or might not work. They were at war. And in order for his country to win, or at least come through it, they needed something bigger, dirtier. He mentally reviewed the one major contribution Dr. Marcus Allen had made to his country's media warfare. You must remove those images from the tube if your government wants to accomplish its aims without outside meddling. And they've done that. Reduced visual media coverage to file footage. But they had not replaced those images with anything as strong, as pro-government as possible. As Colonel Henrik Iceberg Malan of the Secret Police Dirty Tricks Public Relations Section, he felt frustrated at not being able to come up with the right formula. They needed something that depended on a third wheel, in a manner of speaking, something that would not be so obvious that it was noticeable and yet would have the proper impact. It's sunny in South Africa. May I come in, Colonel? Sir? Yes, Fairbolt, come in. The meeting is over. Yes, of course. Dr. Allen submitted his account for his services. It seemed pay him whatever he asked. Yes, of course, sir. I'm going for a walk. If there are any messages for me, you can have them delivered to the hotel. He had remembered to bring a pair of sunglasses, an accessory that he found extremely useful during all-night interrogation sessions. Beverly Hills, Wilshire Boulevard at midday. He strolled east for a couple of blocks, impressed but unawed by the giant buildings, a tribute to high finance. Beverly Hills, Wilshire Boulevard. It could be any large financially structured boulevard in Johannesburg. He took careful note of the beautiful women and handsome men. He could tell that rugby was not a popular sport from the number of unbroken noses he saw. Why the hell are we supporting this damn Babylon? He asked himself, walking back to his hotel. The damn hypocrites confirmed every stupid reading that had ever been made of them. They spent thousands of dollars to publish lies and accepted millions in hypocrite money, obviously pleased with the profit margin. He paused for a bite to eat in one of the swank dining spas that dotted the area. Horrible food. Pretentious atmosphere, complete with two stars that he vaguely recognized from some popular TV program. $50 for a piece of stale fish and a dab of some kind of sauce. He felt a real twinge for Cape Natal lobster and the simple tart sauce that went with it. The wine was even worse. A complex California vintage that had been frozen to tastelessness. Will there be anything else there? Do you think I could stand it anymore? Beg pardon, sir? Forget it. Bring the check. Beverly Hills was such a cold fish, but so was White Joburg and White London and White Paris and White Lagos and all of the places that prided themselves on their whiteness. The racist code designated white areas by a money standard. He understood that. But he couldn't understand the rationale that operated as an effort to prove that buying things represented the apex of what was gently termed the good life. La Dolce Vita. He paused the window shop a block from his hotel, his mind settling back to the problem of PR. The situation was never declared serious, but at the same time, all of the perceptive members of his government realized that they were in a life or death situation. Too bad Allen couldn't have come up with something foolproof. He threw himself across his bed, relieved to be out of the sun, away from the false images. Dr. Marcus Allen, Beverly Hills, Marla's. No, not Marla's. Marla's was for real. He smiled at his use of what he assumed was a black idiom, Marla's. He made a mental note to go back. He had discovered the African good time style in the she-beans of Soweto as an arrogant young white policeman. The more he thought about it, the more he felt the solution for his problem rested in the ghetto, the African-American Bantustans. They had the raison d'etre for their destruction. He could feel it in his bones. This is room 515. I'd like to have a car for the evening. What time, sir? 10 p.m. Very good, sir. It will be arranged. A plan was beginning to form in his mind as he showered and shaved. Why not use the same people who were causing us so many problems as a diversion, a way to misdirect? He made a right turn on Martin Luther King Drive to the Flying Fox. Right there at, you know where it is. They gave him the kind of sophisticated black peripheral attention he'd come to expect. A white guy in an overwhelmingly black bar in the Crenshaw area. He could just as well have been Korean, for all they cared. Gin and tonic, please. Beefeater gin. You got it. It wasn't Marla's. There was no act about to go on, no whites but himself. He studied the situation carefully, obliquely. How's everything? You got what you need? The voice was well modulated, seductive. Beg your pardon? Was the man a pimp? A phony ring salesman? I don't know. What do you think I should have? He stared at the small glassine packet the man palmed under the bar face. How much? He asked, innocently, fully knowing that he was about to be taken. Well, ordinarily this would be a $25 bag, but I'll let you have it for 20. He spooled the 20 off of a slim roll of bills, palmed his purchase, and watched the crack peddler slither away. Crack. Cocaine. Wow. He took a sip of his drink and strolled to the men's room to get rid of the evidence, vaguely puzzled about his reasons for buying the drug. He stared at the glassine packet for a moment and suddenly felt the light go on in his head, the flicker that had prevented him from wandering into political ambushes, the intuitive spark that kept him at least 10 steps ahead of his colleagues. Dope. Dope. That was the angle. He watched the packet get sucked down into the vortex. What was it his mother used to say? Henrik, there's a reason for everything. Dope. Drugs. He strolled back to his seat at the bar, nodding a thanks to the bartender for covering his drink with a napkin. He decided not to finish it off. He'd been gone too long. Someone may have dropped something in it. He had the angle he needed now. Time to return to the real world. He dropped a $5 bill on the bar and started out. The pusher made a sly move past him at the door and whispered, "Name is Dap Sugar Charlie. Come on back through when you need something." How do you know I'm not a cop? I know cop when I see him. You ain't no cop. The iceberg exchanged a frosted smile with Dap Sugar. Two bastards from different sizes of tracks. that's the way it starts.
Whoa, that was chapter 1.
That's chapter 1.
Woo. Very
You know,
intense.
after you've been acquainted with enough nefarious characters, I mean, people, in my mind, I think about a whole collection of Hollywood producers that I've dealt with over the years, who would do things like make you feel like they are absolutely and completely dedicated to the idea that you just presented them. And they prick their fingers and sign their names in blood saying, we'll get back to you on this next Tuesday at 10 o'clock. For example, I know a guy who might be in that same category. Who, I'll get in touch with you, man. You know, they hound you. You know, they run up behind you. And then when they find that they can make a better deal somewhere, they just slid off like snakes. This is Malan, and he reflects a certain kind of snake. And that's all I can say about
It's
that.
just business.
We're gonna get together on chapter. But I wanted to also deal with, once again, in this little book, international circumstances. We always get pushed into that black writer thing. African American writer writes about African American circumstances in a way that's just simply always ghettoized. And you know, we don't have to stay there. We all over the place.
Thank you. That's why it's important to read. If you can't go there, read.
Read it, yeah. I mean, you don't have to. You know, somebody was asking me, you know, how to pronounce this guy's name. Find out. You know, his name is Fairboat. His name is Malan. His name is Paderewski. His name is Shostakovich. You know, come
Why
on.
did you give this particular character that name?
Because the Malan tribe, the Malan clan in South Africa was an old family name. Fairboat, I believe, I'm going back to it. I think Fairboat and Malan were the architects of apartheid.
Yes, that's right.
They came up with the whole plan.
Right.
These people are going to be free if we let them, benefit from the discovery of diamonds and gold here. So in order to keep them subservient, what we have to do is charge them money. One case that sticks in my mind was some people who came to a village. They were doing okay. They were raising corn on the outskirts, and they had the basic needs. And they started charging them a hut tax because they were living on government land. The hut tax was like maybe $10. Nobody had $10. Nobody, whatever the South African money was. Anyway, in order to earn the $10, they had to be, the young men, the working men, had to be carted away to the gold mines, to the diamond mines, where they were making, I don't know, $1 a day, something like that. So for working 5 days, they had $5, which was half of their hut tax. So they were always kept perpetually in debt, like here, the company store.
Right.
You know, the guy gets the seed for his cotton, raises the cotton. The white man weighs it and says, okay, well, you 10 pounds short, and you got to make it up by planting some more cotton next year. And by the time you've been sharecropping 10 years, you're only $10,000 in debt. I mean,
yes.
But that's what they did.
Well, Conspiracy can be purchased on Amazon.
This book here.
Yes. And again, your website is www.odiehawkins.com. There we go. Very good. Thank you.
Get the book, Gary.
The photo of the cover was done by Salena-Hawkins.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I not mention?
That's all right.
This cover was done by Salena-Hawkins. In addition to this cover.
Yes.
And 17 other covers.
Well,
Or is it 37
several
other
other covers. Okay.
I could go on all night long about
Your website.
what you've covered.
Your website is www.odiehawkins.com.
You're not going to let me say what I'm going to say. Okay, it's all right.
You go ahead and say, baby, what you want to say.
I forgot.
All right. Anyway, website is www.odiehawkins.com, and you are also on the Amazon's authors page with some videos. Google Odie Hawkins, and you will be very surprised with the variety of activities that he is involved in. Thank you very much for this reading this evening, and we look forward to
Pushing the sky up.
lifting the sky.
It's like
Okay.
lifting the sky.
All right. All right. Talk with you later, child.
Hey,
Ciao.
stay up, everybody.
Amen.
Help is on the way.
Bright moments.
Bright moments.